from the Senate Minority Leader, Chuck Schumer, which a lot of people say is over the line. Let's bring in Newt Gingrich, Fox News contributor, former Speaker of the House as well. He joins us right now. Newt, good morning to you.
Good morning.
Good morning.
Let's play for the folks.
I think over the line is probably too mild.
You're probably right. We're going to play the soundbite, Newt. Newt, let's play the soundbite and then get your comment.
All right.
Republican legislatures are waging a war on women, all women, and they're taking away fundamental rights. I want to tell you, Gorsuch, I want to tell you, Kavanaugh, you have released the whirlwind, and you will pay the price. You won't know what hit you if you go forward with these awful decisions.
Okay, so Newt, to a lot of people, it sounded like Mr. Schumer was threatening two Supreme Court justices.
Well, of course he was. Look, he was in front of a crowd. They were fanatically committed to the maximum opportunity to kill children, and they were all revved up. He was revved up, and he got carried away. And what he said was pure demagoguery. It's totally irresponsible and dangerous. As you know, we live in a country where you start getting a senior politician by name attacking Supreme Court justices. That's actually posing a danger to those justices, which is why Chief Justice Roberts spoke out so strongly. But, you know, I think it tells you the level of passion that you have on the left about a whole range of issues, because they see their world starting to collapse, and they're beginning to get more and more desperate. And Schumer yesterday was just an illustration of that desperation.
You know, the Catholic Church preaches pro-life, and there was a sign that was being held up right next to him that said, "Protecting abortion access is a Catholic value." Look at that sign right there next to him. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts are that it's a free country, and, you know, people can basically make up anything they want to. That certainly would not be the position of the Catholic Church as an institution. It would not be the position of any of the bishops or cardinals, and it wouldn't be the position of the Pope. So, you know, but look, you have a lot of politicians. Joe Biden is one, Nancy Pelosi is another, who are Catholic, who grew up in the church, and who have become pro-abortion, some of them to such a degree that they're basically pro-infanticide. They're willing to kill the baby after it's born. Somehow they justify that in their minds. Most of the country, most Americans, do not think that abortion in the 7th, 8th, and 9th month, or killing the baby after it's born, as the governor of Virginia advocated, they don't think that's, you know, acceptable, moral, or legitimate. And that's a real challenge for the Democrats, because they're increasingly fanatic on this issue.
All right, so so when Justice Roberts, as you just alluded to, came out and said this is unacceptable, and he made it clear, we almost never hear that. Judge Napolitano says he never remembers Chief Justice speaking out about another lawmaker's perceived threats. And so you would expect Senator Schumer maybe to walk it back and apologize. He didn't. According to his spokesperson, he believes this. Senator Schumer's comments were a reference to the political price Senate Republicans will pay for putting these justices on the court. Now I feel better. Did they even put any thought into that? They expect us to buy that? No references to Senate.
Look, you know it's a lie. I know it's a lie, and virtually any person who pays attention knows it's a lie. I think the Wall Street Journal had an editorial pointing out that there was an absurd defense. Schumer made a mistake. He ought to apologize for it. He ought to admit that it's totally out of bounds. And as I said, it's dangerous. We live in a world where some fanatic can listen to that, decide since he named the two justices by name, maybe they should do something about it. This is really dangerous stuff. And Schumer ought to apologize and ought to call for a much calmer obedience to the law.
Well, apparently Mitch McConnell is going to call out Schumer later on today. And it sounds like Mr. Hawley from the great state of Missouri is going to introduce a resolution of censure. We'll keep people posted on that. Meanwhile, Newt, I'm sure you were watching it on Super Tuesday evening. It was a stunning turnaround for Joe Biden as the Democrats rallied around him just in the nick of time, and he wound up doing much better than people thought he was going to do 4 days earlier. But Bernie called out the media for rallying around Mr. Biden, as we hear in this montage.
But this just confirms exactly what I said. It's what the media has been talking about for months. How do we stop Bernie Sanders? How do we stop a movement of working people and low-income people? How do we stop a multi-generational, multiracial movement which is standing up for justice? And what you do is you get candidates out of the race to rally around Joe Biden, and now Joe will have behind him, I don't know what is the first I've heard of what role Mayor Bloomberg will be playing, but obviously as the 9th wealthiest person in this country who's worth some $60 billion, I suspect we will see, a lot of money coming into Biden's campaign, probably a lot of negative ads attacking me. That's what we're taking on.
And Joe Biden and he are set to have another debate. It's going to be on March 15th. Bernie Sanders said he hopes it doesn't turn out to be a food fight with Joe Biden, but come on, there's a lot on the line, Newt.
Well, there is. I think it's going to be interesting to see how Sanders takes on Biden. There's a sort of general agreement in the Democratic Party that you're not allowed to talk about Hunter Biden. You're not allowed to talk about money from Ukraine or money from China. In many ways, Joe Biden has been protected both by the elite news media and by his fellow candidates. So it'll be interesting to see whether Sanders goes down that road. I'm sure that Sanders is going to take Biden on as a sort of representative of the corporate Democratic Party and the insider party. But the challenge for Bernie is that the 50 hours, and I wrote a newsletter talking about this 50 hours, where you go from the night before South Carolina and people thinking, can Biden even stay in the race? And can anybody stop Sanders? 50 hours later, Biden wins South Carolina. The news media piles on. Buttigieg drops out and endorses him. Klobuchar drops out and endorses him. He ends up carrying, Rourke endorses him. Suddenly, Biden has the momentum. Turns out that $500 billion, think about it, $500 million, $500 million, $500 million spent by Bloomberg, proved the old rule that great advertising can't sell a bad product. And he proved in the two debates that Bloomberg was a terrible product. And so he crashes. Now he's endorsed Biden. I think it's a little hard to see, and I'm going to do a podcast this Sunday about the results, a little hard to see right now how Sanders does anything except become sort of an insurgent candidate representing about 40% of the party, but not, I don't see a road for him right now to get back to being the majority unless he takes Biden head on. And I don't think the Sanders' instinct is to do that.
What about all those Democrats that like Bernie Sanders? And if Biden gets the nomination, will they support him?
Well, but look, I think Biden is a professional, and he's surrounded by professionals. They did a great job of orchestrating all the endorsements and really moving the system in 50 hours or so. I assume that they will reach out and say, what do you need in the platform? Mm-hmm. And Sanders has said he needs Medicare for all. So Biden's going to have a couple of big decisions. If, in fact, Biden, and again, this is not over. I mean, remember, the world changed in the last 5 days, so let's not assume that we understand what it's going to be like, 3 months from now. But I think if Biden continues to build momentum, he's then going to be faced with a clear choice. Does he reach to the left to try to bring Sanders in? And is there anything in the platform or other things, let Bernie be the keynote speaker, et cetera? Is there anything he can do to bring Bernie in? Or, in fact, does he play the role that Bill Clinton played in 1992 with Sister Souljah, take Bernie head on and say, look, I'm a centrist. I'm not a left-wing crazy. And if the country, I think the country is going to prefer me to Trump. And I think in the end, Bernie's people are all going to vote for me because the alternative is Trump. Although I think Biden's got a couple of big decisions there.
Although we
don't know yet.
He's not a centrist. He's actually embracing the new Green Deal. He wants Beto O'Rourke to head up his gun policy. So he's just a centrist compared to the socialist he's running against. You've never seen such extremes in the same party. But, Newt, here's the thing going forward. I think we should just call this as it is. He's run a terrible campaign. He's terrible on the stump. He cannot get anyone to a rally. He cannot ad-lib anything. He can't get through a appearance without a major mishap. It's the same guy. He didn't visit 7 of the states that he actually won. It's just they have nowhere else to turn.
Right. I mean, look, what did it tell? I agree with everything you just said. I mean, when he said you got to go out and vote on Super Thursday, I thought that was probably one more indication that he wasn't altogether in touch with reality. But what does it tell you? As weak a candidate as Biden is, and he's always been a weak candidate, he had to drop out twice before running for president. What does it tell you that as weak as he is, that the others were weaker?
Yeah.
I mean, this was a collection of it's a little bit like the movie Dumb and Dumber. This was weak and weaker. And it was kind of weak and weaker. I mean, a whole bunch of them were weaker. What does it tell you that Bloomberg can spend $500 million? I mean, I don't know about you guys, but I was available.
Was he just not charismatic enough? It was that debate. That debate. They put all their money on Biden.
It wasn't that he wasn't charismatic. Look, Bloomberg really was little Mike. All right. I mean, Trump had it down exactly right. Bloomberg faced with the very first thing in that debate is Warren going right at him and hitting him as hard as she can. And he stood there like a deer in the headlights. If that had been Trump, he would have turned and said, look, Pocahontas, you lied in order to get a job at Harvard. You lied over and over. Don't you lecture me. And by the time he was done, she'd have been small, he'd have been big. Instead, Bloomberg kept shrinking. And people would punch him, and he would take the punch and look like he was totally dazed. And at the end of that first debate, what people knew was the guy in the TV ads and the real guy are very different.
Right.
And at that point, Bloomberg began to disappear.
Yeah, and the thing is, he had to run from what he did for 12 years as mayor because he did it as a Republican, strong on law enforcement, supporting law enforcement, cracking down on unions, all the things that Democrats don't want to do.
Right. He spent about $25 million per delegate. It's not the all-time record, but still, that's a pretty large amount of money per delegate.
It is indeed. All right, Newt, thank you very much for joining us today. Always great chatting with you.
Good to be with you.